As a mood reader, there is something about the sound of the soft percussion of the rain on our steel roof that just makes me want to find a chair, get a book, and curl up and while away the afternoon. My phone is on landline mode, I have a warm cup of something in my hands, a blanket on my lap, the dog is probably snoozing nearby, and I have my next great escape ready to read. Rainy days just seem made for getting lost in pages, for letting a story pull you in and keep you there, really feeling safe and warm. And there are books out there that are, in my opinion, built for this. They are made for this mood. So today I'm sharing a stack of truly special, comforting reads that are perfect for mood readers who live for afternoons like this. Because, my friends, Phyllis from The Office was 100% correct when she said, rainy days really are the perfect excuse for curling up with a good book and letting the world wait. So first of all, let's jump into some books that I would probably class as gentle escapes. The plot in these books is often fairly low stakes and it doesn't require a great amount of brain capacity, which means you can just open the book and dive right in. I think one of the keys to these books is the narrative that is charming and oozing warmth, and nobody does that better than the British, in my opinion. So the first book I'd recommend as a really gentle escape for a rainy afternoon is A Month in the Country by J.R.R. Carr. This book is very slight and could be read in a day if you are a fast-ish reader, and it is set around one summer just after the Great War when a man named Tom arrives in a small sleepy village. He has been affected deeply by this war. He is a soldier and his marriage has been broken. He's been invited to come and uncover and restore a medieval painting in the local church. And at the same time, another man named Charles, who is a damaged soldier from the war, has been asked to relocate a grave of a village ancestor. And as these two men go about their works of discovery, they are forever changed by this sleepy town and the people in it. They form a real bond and they stir up a little bit of passion within the villagers themselves. And what Tom discovers, both physically and emotionally, will change him for the rest of his life. It is a really beautiful, gentle read, and I think it's a great one to pick up and while away an afternoon with the rain falling outside. I'm fully aware that not everyone has an entire afternoon to while away, so short stories can be quite a good thing for that, and I would highly recommend The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle as a great solution. The thing with mysteries is once you know the outcome, it can be a little hard to reread because you know all the suspense has led to a point that you know already. Whereas short stories are quite good because you can always leave a few unread for those mood-led moments like a rainy afternoon. This book ticks a few boxes because it has an air of mystery, it is set in the foggy streets of London and in the English countryside, and a lot of scenes take place in Sherlock's study with the fireplace roaring and him smoking a pipe, and it's very atmospheric in that sense. Sometimes a cozy rainy read isn't just about curling up in your own corner of the world, it's about really stepping out of it entirely. And one step up from those gentle slice of life escapes are books that really invite you to visit entirely new places. And in this instance, I think fantasy is a great read for that. Something to pull you into a unique and vivid world where you can almost hear the crackling of a wizard's wand or the smell of rain on the cobblestone streets. And they're not just stories, they're places that you can inhabit for a few hours at a time, exploring lands that are nothing like our own, but somehow feel familiar and comforting. And because these worlds are so rich and vivid, you may find yourself spending a little more time in these realms than in a gentle escape because you are getting to know characters and understanding the world and the history behind it. You learn the rules of the land and you lose track of time completely. And on a rainy afternoon, that kind of deep, transportive escape is magic, which is an apt description because these are all my recommendations here are fantasy. The first recommendation would be The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This is most definitely a book you could read in a single setting, which is what I did when I first read it. I could not put it down. I was so caught up in this new world. It is a prequel to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, although it was published the 6th out of the 7 books, which are the Chronicles of Narnia. It opens in a cold and wet summer in England where Diggory and Polly, who are next door neighbours, meet each other and become fast friends. And their lives take a sharp turn when Diggory's uncle sends them hurtling into another world. When they arrive in this place, Narnia is being formed out of Aslan's song, and it's one of my favourite moments in books to read Aslan creating Narnia. But on their journey, they also meet the evil sorceress who threatens everything. And it is such a great transportive read. It brings to life that magic of Narnia that is just as special for adults as it is for children. I would also recommend for a world of whimsy and wonder is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I think this is a really great fantasy book for people that are first dipping their toes into the fantasy genre. It is not complicated, but it gives you an entirely new world to live in. So in The Cruel Prince, we meet Jude, who is 7 years of age, and she witnesses the murder of her parents. She and her sisters are then stolen away by the murderer of her parents, and they go to live in the High Court of the Fairy, which is a magical world adjacent to our world. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to fit into this world, even though she is mortal and the fairy generally despise mortals. They are used more for like slaves and menial tasks. She wants to fit in, and she really wants to become a knight for the High King. But of all those people that despise mortals, perhaps no one despises them more than Prince Carden, who is the youngest son of the High King, and he is wicked and cruel and makes her life a living hell. Jude becomes embroiled in the palace intrigue, and she ends up having to risk her own life and some lives of other people around her to save her sisters and fairy itself. If you're not a fantasy reader in general, this is a great book. There's a little bit of romance, but it's not at all what you would call a romantasy. There is just a snippet here of closed-door romance. And that's why I kind of like it, because a lot of fantasy books these days, you don't know what you're getting in for. This one is the first of 3 books called the Folk of Air series, and I am dying to get to the next book. I am trying to pace myself because you can only read a book for the first time once. But The Cruel Prince is a very low-stakes fantasy in the sense that you don't have to invest a lot of brain power in understanding the world building. It is done in a really gentle way that allows you to enter this world without overthinking. And that simplicity allows you to focus more on the plot and the characters, and I found it a really fast-paced read. And of course, you could not go past recommending a Harry Potter book for a fantasy recommendation on a rainy afternoon. There are so many books within this series that you might want to dive into. You might have a particular favourite one. I think for me, I would always go to The Philosopher's Stone first, the first book in the series. They are such great books to read because they always start at the end of summer, early autumn, when it just is getting those rainy vibes as Harry and his friends are going back to school. But The Philosopher's Stone I particularly love because we are experiencing the world building along with Harry. So he is asking questions that maybe we have, and we get the answers. And in this book, of course, we watch Harry's world completely change, where he realizes that he is a wizard, and he has been told that he is going to go to school now at Hogwarts, the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and he meets new friends and has adventures, and it's a perfect read. And it is very nostalgic for me. Sometimes the best stories are those that have stood the test of time, and so that is the classics. The classics are like old friends, you know, the rhythm, the voices, and there's something deeply soothing about returning to them time and time again. They carry a nostalgic appeal that's hard to beat as they wrap you in familiar themes, unforgettable characters, and there's something that I love in knowing that this has been read for generations, and there's something comforting in that. So whether it is the quiet wisdom of a Jane Austen novel or the atmosphere conjured in a Bronte novel, classics offer a different kind of literary comfort food that is perfect for curling up with while the rain is falling outside. And I am not surprised that the books that I have chosen to lean into are also what you would call classic children's books. And the first one I recommend is Bambi by Felix Salten. This is a book that really unfolds its magic with every read. On one hand, it's a classic coming-of-age story as we follow Bambi from his birth and as he grows in this forest amongst his friends and his cousins. Bambi experiences the beauty of the wild along with the dangers that then come later on. The story explores themes like the cycle of life and nature, themes of survival, as Bambi learns about love and loss and eventually takes his place as the great prince of the forest. It's a really gentle but still very profound read of growing up and finding your place in the world. And there is most definitely some of the most beautiful nature writing I have ever read in this book. If you think you know the story because you once watched Bambi from Disney, think again, read the book, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Personally, I think any book by Frances Hodgson Burnett would be ideal for a rainy day read. But I think the one I would probably lean to would be The Secret Garden. It really is a good read at any time of the year, but it really is one of those books that even if you're perhaps not considered a mood reader, this might be a book that you would lean into hard come spring and looking for those feelings that you can only find in nature. And on a rainy day, it just hits different. So The Secret Garden tells the story of a young girl named Mary who has come to live with her reclusive uncle after her parents have died. And she is sent to this remote part of England. She's never lived in England before. She's come from India, so it is very, very foreign to her. But while exploring the grounds, she uncovers a secret garden that has been hidden and neglected for years and years. And with the help of her new friend Dickon and her cousin Colin, they bring the garden back to life. It really is a timeless tale of friendship, renewal, and the healing power of nature. I particularly love how the story mirrors the blooming of the garden with the children undergoing a mental and physical healing of their own. If The Secret Garden isn't your jam, then I would recommend another book from Frances Hodgson Burnett called A Little Princess. This is such a beautiful read. I highly recommend either of these. In The Little Princess, we meet Sarah, who has come to this boarding school in England, and her father adores her and dotes on her, and she has had everything she has ever wanted in life. And then she gets the unfortunate news that her father has died, and her position at this boarding school is now in jeopardy because there's no one to pay for her education. And just the way that Sarah goes about her life, her imagination and her positive outlook, it's just such a beautiful read. And if you can follow either of these up with the movies of them, exquisite. And the final book in this category is, of course, The Hobbit. It is an adventure of the best kind, and The Hobbit is really built for reading under lamplight on a gloomy afternoon. I really do think this is a kind of book that will continue to reveal itself with rereading it, and I actually read it only for the first time myself a couple of months ago, and I videoed that experience. So if you want to read the first chapter of this with me, I will leave a link to that video below. I chose to read it on a rainy day. It just felt like that particular mood, even though I hadn't read the book before. But I love spending time with Bilbo as he leaves the safety of his comfortable home to go and be a burglar for a bunch of dwarves who are trying to reclaim their home from the evil dragon Smaug. He surprises himself and his companions with his integrity and his cunning at times, and I really enjoyed it. It may be the pinnacle of a rainy day read. And the final category is for the comfort that comes not just from stories that whisk us away, but from the reflections and memories that are quite grounding. I think even in light of these books I've shared with you, non-fiction may be the genre I want to gravitate to the most on a rainy day. They can feel like a warm conversation, or it can bring a moment of clarity. There are so many options here, such as self-help and nature and memoirs, that reconnect us with the simple beauty of the world around us. These books don't overwhelm or demand too much from you. They offer solace, perspective, and a peaceful warmth for those times when you just want to curl up with a little bit of knowledge. The first one I'd recommend is Beatrix Potter's Gardening Life by Marta McDowell. For me personally, there is nothing like a rainy day that means I can't be outside in the garden, that makes me want to be outside in the garden. So instead, I have to try and find that satisfaction through books, instead of having my hands physically in the dirt. And I really think this book is a great antidote for that, because it gives us information about Beatrix Potter's life through the gardens of her childhood, and then how that formed her basis for creating a lot of her stories and her illustrations. Marta McDowell has a number of books about writers and their gardens, and this one is just about the plants and places that inspired Potter's writing. It's a journey that I don't think has been done before, as McDowell goes through Potter's interests in plants as a child, through to her development as an artist, and then later in life as a farmer and a naturalist. It's also a beautiful book to look through the Lake District in England, Potter's own home and garden at Hilltop Farm, and a number of other places that inspired her. It has beautiful photos, it has examples of her sketch drawings and how the drawings relate to a place. That's a really fascinating comparison. Highly informative and highly recommended. And a lot of the chapters, when it comes to revealing Beatrix Potter's own garden, are set in seasons, so you could just read it for the season you're in. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, and I feel this book is really good for a rainy afternoon, maybe when you only have a small amount of time, because it is an epistolary novel. It is set in letter form, and it's very easy to come in and out of. My version of this is a slightly foxed version. It's a beautiful little edition that is a really pleasant way to read. I feel very much like a Jane Austen heroine as I read out of this book. But it is actually two books. The first is 84 Charing Cross Road, and then the second is The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street. Duchess of Bloomsbury. The first book is a series of letters from Helene in New York to the staff at Marks & Co. Books in Charing Cross Road in London. And then the second book is a memoir of her time in London as she was there to promote her book, 84 Charing Cross Road. Helene's wisecracking wit just jumps off the page. It is a pure joy to read. I don't think there's another word to describe reading this book. It is just joyful as you read it. I love seeing how the relationships formed from letter to letter and how she built these relationships over the sea and over books. So if you are a fan of literature, of history as well, because it gives you a lot of information about post-war Britain, then I recommend this book. It'll help you appreciate a gentler and slower time in our history. Another slightly foxed book I have is The Prince, the Showgirl and Me by Colin Clark. This is a memoir based on the diaries that Colin kept during the filming of The Prince and the Showgirl, which is a movie that was directed and starred Laurence Olivier and starred Marilyn Monroe. It's a really fascinating fly-on-the-wall account of quite a contentious film. Laurence Olivier was looking for something to give him a new relevance, and working with Monroe gave him that, while Marilyn Monroe was looking to be taken seriously as an actor, and starring with Laurence Olivier, who was one of the greatest actors of his time, gave her that. It's not a perfect book. Clark's writing can be a little bit dull at times, but it is a fantastic fly-on-the-wall account. I find this sort of thing really interesting, and reading it in diary form is very low stakes. There is another version of the book called My Week with Marilyn, which was a portion of this book, but just over a particular time frame within, I think the movie was made over a 6-month period, and that's how long this diary goes for. But My Week with Marilyn is just a portion of it where Colin Clark had direct contact with Marilyn Monroe. So there you have it, a little collection of books perfect for those cozy, rainy afternoons when all you want is a little comfort, escape, and maybe a little bit of magic. So whether you're drawn to gentle stories or rich fantasy worlds, timeless classics or something non-fiction, I hope there's something here that will wrap you up like a warm blanket on your next rainy afternoon. And I'd love to hear from you. What is a book that you would recommend as an ideal comfort rainy day read? Drop your response in the comments below so we can uncover even more books. Thank you so much for watching, and here's to many peaceful rainy afternoons that we can pick up our comfort reads and just escape the world for a while. Hopefully with a warm cup of tea in our hand. Have a wonderful week of reading ahead, and I will speak with you soon. Bye.